Welcome. This is Scott Drake. My guest is Peter Cohan. He's president of Peter Cohan and Associates. He is an author. His company is a management consulting and venture capital firm. His new book is called Capital Rising. It's been said that this looks at globalization in a new way, namely through the lens of global capital flows. Peter, welcome.
Thanks a lot.
This sounds very complex, Peter, but you talk about these flows, these global capital flows, creating opportunities and then also threats for a lot of businesses. Can you explain that a little bit?
Oh, sure. And the basic idea is actually not that complicated. It's the simple idea at the beginning of the book is that if you want to start a business, you need money. And money coming to start businesses is coming from all over the world now. You have a lot of money. For instance, $709 billion this year is going to emerging markets from around the world to help start businesses. A lot of them are in China and India. So that's the basic theory, is that where the money flows is where the businesses are going to get started. And where the businesses are going to get started is where you're going to have jobs being created and taxes being paid and economic activity that just creates a nice virtuous cycle of continued growth and economic development. So the focus of this book was basically to try to explain why the capital is moving more to some countries than to others, and what that means for policyholders, policymakers in government, capital providers, namely private equity and venture capital firms and hedge funds, and people who start up businesses and managers of existing businesses. Those capital flows and the factors that move those capital flows around the world are things that all those people need to understand. They can, in some cases, they can shape those factors. In other cases, they can work around those factors in order to do what they want to do.
So how do these trends tend to affect your company, for example?
Well, it creates consulting business, and it also creates venture capital opportunities in different places than it might have, say, 20 or 30 years ago. For instance, I'll find myself consulting with a company in Japan that is interested in finding partners around the world to take a technology that was developed in a research lab outside of Tokyo and apply it to different applications in countries around the world. Or I see a lot of examples of ventures that are started up, startup companies where the technology is invented in Israel and the capital comes from Silicon Valley, and the marketing and sales are in the U.S., and manufacturing maybe in China. So you have these global ventures that are set up because those are the places where the capabilities, the human capital resides in different places in the world. The financial markets where you want to get the capital and then exit the business maybe in the U.S., and the manufacturing may best be done in China. So you have this sort of globalization of the value chain of a business. And what this does is it creates tremendous opportunity and profit potential, but there's also all sorts of threats involved, as you had mentioned earlier, in these global markets, because there's some things in what we call in the book a key concept is the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and the entrepreneurial ecosystem is different in different countries, and those differences are things that people need to know about if they're going to invest or they're going to build a business.
Well, that was my next question. The EE quotient is what you talk about here. Given the way things are going in Europe right now, how does the EE work in that kind of a system?
Well, one of the things that jumps out at me in Europe from the book is how nasty it is in Russia. I did not realize, for instance, all the examples of people from the West in the last 5 or 10 years putting capital into Russia, building successful businesses, and once they were successful, having the Russian government use its legal system to essentially do what my college roommate who's a lawyer called creeping expropriation of their business. And one of the most dramatic examples of this was a company that called Sawyer Research based in Cleveland, which had decided that there was an opportunity for building a plant and expanding a plant in Russia to build quartz crystals. And so what they did was they invested money from a U.S. firm, invested that money in a basically a moribund Russian quartz plant, invested about $8 million, and got it to be a successful business. It was generating millions of dollars of business and selling the output of that plant around the world. Previously, it had been doing absolutely nothing. It had been an old defense plant. And they got it into being a successful business, and then the Russian legal system essentially shut down the business, used its legal system to invalidate, for instance, its leases and all its contracts, and essentially steal all the investment, steal the business, and essentially once the guy from the U.S. was out, it shut down.
Well, we've only scratched the surface on the book. I can tell you, just based on what he said, this is a must-read if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an executive, even if you're a politician. You should go out and pick up Capital Rising. My guest is the author, Peter Cohan. He is president of Peter Cohan & Associates, management consulting and venture capital firm, author, prolific article writer on finance. Peter, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
This is Scott Drake. Thanks for watching Annuity News Now.